We expect you to engage this conversation between Dr. Cara Miller and our great, great friend, Adam Nelson. So let's bring them up on the stage. Thanks.
Yeah, totally.
And number two, Dr. Miller will be using the whiteboard. So if you need to get up and move around to see her notes, do it. Do it.
Oh, we don't have green
Do
on
it.
us the whole time, do we?
You want to see if they can turn it?
Okay. Hello. This feels a little bit Oprah-ish. We came out with the Oprah.
I think we should start off
image.
with a slow clap.
Okay,
It really
Adam
worked well
wanted
for
to do
Ben.
a slow clap,
Come on,
and I've
everybody.
never done nothing.
What you don't know is that when I do a slow clap, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. All right.
That's awesome.
All right.
Okay, well, I'm going to do a little bit of introduction and some framing, and then, like Luke said, we're going to invite you in past sort of the fourth wall, as they say in theater, to come into a coaching conversation. And hopefully, it's a coaching conversation that disrupts maybe the sort of stereotypical coaching conversation that you may have either seen before or been in before or imagined usually happens in a coaching situation. So, so they gave me a great introduction. I'm Cara, and I study the way that leaders develop. And I do that in psychology. So you may have studied child psychology, which is how children develop. But when we turn 18, our brains and our psychology does not stop developing. We still have stages of development that we can identify and issues that people usually are dealing with at each of those developmental stages. And so I call myself a developmental coach because that's the tradition that I come from. And so I want to have Adam introduce himself so that, I mean, I don't think he probably needs as much of an introduction, but will you introduce yourself?
My name's Adam Nelson. I am probably best known for what I did before what I do now, which was throwing a shot put. That's a steel ball. We threw it as far away from us as possible. I used to yell and scream quite a bit at it. It makes it go farther. And I had some success with that. I was able to go to 3 different Olympic Games, 6 World Championships, and with the exception of the last 2, I think the lowest I finished was second in all of them. Since that time, I've had a couple of career pivots. Currently, I'm CFO, COO for a company that raises over $2 million for pediatric oncology research and treatment. And that's sort of where I'm at today.
Okay, so behind the veil, Adam and I only met because of this talk idea. So, so we don't know each other than the 2 conversations that we've had that were to prep for this, to make sure there was a little bit of chemistry and so that I could establish some credibility and that I was a sturdy container for Adam to do some work. Obviously, he's a very accomplished person in physical performance, but also he's you know, an accomplished leader in an organizational setting. And so we hope to bring you into that place with him. So I'm in the role of coach, and it's real. And Adam's in the coach of leader transitioning, and that is real. So we are real time, like here and now. And so that's the part that we want to invite you to. In that vein, what I'm going to invite us to do first is to practice the way that we're going to be interactive. So I want some of you guys to get your voices in the room early so that you aren't hesitant to kind of like break the seal later on and interrupt us. So the first question that we're going to start out with, which is a question that I would always start out with in a coaching relationship too, is what are you hoping you might see or learn from Adam and I in this session? Knowing what you know, what are you hoping to see or learn? And where's the microphones? Are they around? Okay, good. Oh yeah, you might not need one. Introduce yourself, say hello, and
My name's Trevor Williams. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at Sam Houston State University, about 3 hours east of here. Really, what I really am interested in I work with 17 to 21-year-old athletes, and it's scary. And I've been doing it for 10 years.
Why is it scary?
Because it's ever evolving. As I start leaving their generation, I find less and less connection. It's the first time in my life that I'm 33. I'm not on Snapchat, there's a lot of things that I struggle to stay on the forefront with. A lot of tools that I know a lot of different people use as motivation and connectivity, Instagram, things like that. But it was funny, I had a conversation with a baseball coach, and I said, at the end of the day, you realize we are both absolutely crazy that our lives hinge on the success of 18 to 21-year-olds. At any day, they could come in and say, I don't want to do this. And you can't accept that as a coach. You have to find a way. That's probably one of the reasons I'm so passionate about coaching is the fact that every day I walk into a different situation. Someone's having a bad day, a group's having a bad day.
Okay, so in this session, how can we, where do you see us fitting into this sort of conundrum? Did I capture it well?
Yes.
Okay.
Just understanding from like you said.
Yes.
18 years old, they're still developing.
Yeah. They're just starting.
A lot of things that I've convinced myself of is they've come into their own by the time they're 18 to 21 years old.
Yeah.
Kind of dispelling some of the myths that, like you said, they are still developing and how to be on their page and how to help them with that and how to myself develop.
Okay, awesome. Yes. Okay, what else? What are you hoping to hear or expecting to hear? Yeah. If you don't need a microphone, then just deliver.
All right, hey, Sean Anderson. I'm currently active duty Air Force. Done a few of these for the last several years. And one of the big points of that, the only reason I bring it up is truthfully, when you're talking about transformational leadership, you look at career changes and some of these high-performing athletes like yourself, sir, John Welburn, some of these guys went for so long performing so high at a level. We see this in the military a lot where that's how they define themselves for so long. And really, when you go from that transition from defining yourself, and this is my reason for existence, is doing this thing, performing this high level, that can only last for so long. And at a certain point, you have to kind of give that up. And making that transition to, okay, now I'm going from a doer to a leader to a something completely different. I really like to see how you've been able to manage that, and then see how to smooth over that transition to where you still have a feeling of self-worth. Thank you.
Okay, that's our introduction, isn't it? Yeah.
Nailed that one.
Yeah. I would take that except for the word smooth. Smooth, we're going to ditch. The rest of it, we want. Yes. Okay, what else?
There was one more over here.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
My name's Nafel.
Hi.
So I would be interested in seeing how, as a leader, you're pushing through growth or change or any difficult situations. How do we get through those growth periods?
Okay, yes, we're doing that too because, as I sort of led on in the beginning, Adam is in a period of change, growth, disruption, etc. And it is about identity and what the identity was previously that got him here, but understanding that identity is not enough to get him to the next thing. So all of these things are a yes. Okay, last call. Anything else you're just hoping for? Yeah.
I just got one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's times with the change that you find yourself maybe down. I'd be curious to know, specifically, how do you keep positive in those moments? what's your go-to?
Okay, wait, last one. There was one over here.
Then
Yeah.
back.
Nice.
Tim Robinson. I work for Train Heroic. I want to know a little bit more about, there's a common saying nowadays, enjoy the process, but you can't really have a process without a destination. So it's kind of like a chicken and the egg question. What's more important, where you want to be or how you get there? I think that's kind of paramount in leadership and addressing that with your people.
Okay, yes, that one's famously used as the journey or the destination. Yes, the chicken or the egg. Okay, so these are all yes, and they're all focused on sort of like Adam's experience as a leader. And so what we want to offer is Adam's story and his ability to open up vulnerably to you, to expose like this work he's going to do in the moment as a case, as a context for how to think past some of these things. Stop it. In the same way that like a developmental coach would push past like coaching a business or coaching sort of like a skill set, we're coaching Adam's capacity to make better sense, make more complex sense of all of the things that he's dealing with. So he's, leading more people, he's leading more revenue targets, he's leading more work streams, and his capacity to make sense of how he does that or to understand who he needs to be as a leader has to match that challenge. So we're working to determine sort of like where's Adam's capacity for making sense of those things so far, and how do we walk him up to the edges of that so that he comes to a place where he hasn't yet gone or he hasn't yet had to go. But maybe he does. So we'll get to find that out. I want to offer a couple of developmental concepts that I want you to practice using while you hear us talking. So I'm going to ask him to bring us into the story. What's his role? How's his company transitioning? What's it requiring from him? And I'm going to have you sort of put on my mind for a minute while you're listening to him, and listen for some parameters and some questions and some limitations. So the first one I'm going to use, just do this, is, these are like buzzwords. So what should I do? Or I don't know what to do. Or I need to figure out what to do. Okay, it's really focused on the doing. And what we're going to push him, you'll hear me pushing, it's not a spoiler alert to him, but you'll hear me pushing him to ask the question, who do I need to be for this circumstance? And who do we need to be? So for the organization, for the things that Adam is facing and for the things that the organization is facing, who do they need to be in order to match that challenge? This one is a more tactical question. There's a lot of information, like if you can Google it because it just needs a new kind of an app, or you need to hire somebody, then you can take care of that at home. These types of conversations are risky and disruptive and interesting and actually like move the needle on things because they're asking you to pull right into this sort of identity question, which is, who do I need to be for this circumstance? So the answer to that question from you guys right now, in the here and now, is that you are thinking about being like a sturdy container for Adam, who is going to do some hard work. Yes, for me, but I do this for a living. So, Ben talked about like the energy of leadership and the power of leadership. And when there's a group this large gathered, there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of power that you can use to sort of lead us in this way. So I want you to sort of stay awake and stay engaged, not only to ask questions and interact, but also to hold on to Adam and to me as we do this work. The next one is, I don't know. or I don't know yet. We're listening for this. Remind me of your name. Trevor. Trevor started out by offering one of his expectations or some of his expectations about working with youth athletes. And then he came to a point in his description or his questions when I asked him a couple follow-up questions. And finally he got to the point where he said, yeah, I don't know. For me as a developmental coach, studying developmental psychology, I know that means they're approaching their limit. They're approaching their sort of fences, the territory that they've already mapped. And now I need to accompany them well to start to peek over that fence or to start to look into some new territory and start to create a new map of sense-making, of imagination, about living into sort of an extended reality. So when you hear him use any version of this, that's what you should be thinking about. Aha, we found some sort of ceiling. We found some sort of limit. How can we accompany him well to look over that limit or to forecast ahead? The next one is listening for either or setups. So developmentally, when somebody frames something as being an either or otherwise known as like seeing something as either or, we usually say what? Black or white, right? They're such a black and white thinker. That means it's either black or it's either white, or they're binary. It's a 1 or it's a 0, right? We're looking for those because those are things that realities or observations that haven't yet been integrated. And that as adults develop, especially leaders, integrating those blacks or whites, those 1s or 0s, those either ors, like dogmas, beliefs, is critical to actually becoming something bigger. So the either or, and if you hear him set that up, we also push into that to figure out like how could both things be in operation. So we're going to challenge him. We're going to challenge him on that. And the last one I want you to be thinking of is adoption versus adaptation. And he will, when I ask him about culture and about his own leadership moves, listen for whether he's talking about adopting a new sort of like way of being that comes from his culture, that comes from his leader, that has been set maybe by the DNA of how the organization has already operated before he arrived, or whether he's able to see that like this is a case of actually needing to adapt. So some leaders grow by adopting part of the culture better, and they continue to grow and get better and get more opportunities. This doesn't create sustainable growth. It doesn't break your frame and get you to a new capacity of sense-making. Adapting does. This requires you, to just to learn the system, like go native, learn your culture, and adopt. So, one way I clearly could have done that this morning is ditch the suit and put on a shirt with a brand on it, right? Like, this is probably what I should have done. Anybody want to like toss me a shirt
She's very
right now?
nervous about that. She's actually very self-conscious about it. I think she looks very professional. Wouldn't y'all agree? She looks very professional.
I do not feel so.
There's got to be one in this room, right? There has to be one. Just remember, when the cops come, they're going to go to you.
Responsible party.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, someone's going to give me their luggage because I look like the valet. Okay. I'm happy to do that too, servant leadership and all. Okay, so what we're looking for is he just have a mindset of adoption, like, well, my leader does this, so what I have to do is a workaround this way, and that's how I'm going to succeed, or that's how I'm going to navigate this thing. Or, here's my reality, the way that I need to adapt within that as a constraint is my job. Okay, this is a more complex, a more developed, a more mature mindset for a leader. So, okay, teaching time is over. And any questions quickly to clarify some of those concepts? Yeah.
The last word?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Adaptation.
What would be a good example?
Okay, say it again.
Adaptation. Of
Yes. You're looking for a shorthand for it?
Yeah, like
Yes. Okay. A good example of this, a really common example of this is somebody doesn't take feedback well, so I do like something else rather than give them feedback, right? I try to do something indirect. I try to adjust. I try to do it like passively or get somebody else to do it for me. That's sort of like adopting the system that's already in place, rather than trying to figure out how is it that we have to change or adapt in order to make what we know is good, what we know we have to do, which is get feedback to get better and make that loop tight, right? If we know we have to do that, if we know we want to do that, how do we have to adapt? How do we have to change? Is that better? Is that clearer?
They're
Okay.
interrelated too, I believe. Maybe.
Yes, all of them are not either ors, right? Okay. Okay, so Adam, bring us up to speed with what's going on with you, the organization you work for, your role, and how it's changing.
Do you want me to get with the most recent changes? How far back do you want me to go?
I think the recent change.
Okay.
What do you think?
So,
I need for my pen, too.
to start with, I work for a company called the D10. We put on, right now, currently, a national series of sports events that raise money through executive athletes, basically guys that were college athletes and are now in the workforce and doing very well. But they raise money for pediatric oncology research and treatment. At the sum, simple way to say it, we put on sports events that raise money to help sick kids, much like this event here. It's pretty cool. That's what I came into. That's what I signed up for. In the process of developing this business and growing this business, we've developed a piece of software that has become kind of interesting to some of the people, corporate clients that we work with, these executive athletes, as they look internally to find ways to basically do our event in their ecosystem, in their corporate structure, corporate games, corporate challenges. This space is dominated by, I won't get into that part, I'll stay focused here.
Yes.
I have to admit, I played football and I had a lot of concussions, so sometimes I do go down rabbit holes. Just snap your fingers,
Okay.
It'll be good.
I'm Cara, and here.
I forgot why. So in the last 3 weeks, really, we've seen the value of this software, and we are now in the process of repositioning as a software company that has events. And that may sound like a semantic change, because before we were an event company that actually used a piece of software that we developed, but it actually is a very different business than what we had started off on. And as the CFO and COO of that event business, making such a quick and swift, I'm going to call it a leap, is very challenging. Do you want me to keep going? Or?
Yes. What would your organization call this shift, if not a leap?
So my boss likes to call it a pivot.
Okay.
So this is the founder and the CEO likes to call it a pivot, and the difference really is that a pivot is sort of grounded on the culture, the history of the company. It's something that you just sort of turn the ship a little bit different direction. In my opinion, this is a leap, because we're actually making a completely different shift where maybe the current skill sets of our employees and our staff and our network aren't really geared towards excelling and being successful in this new world. It doesn't mean that we can't,
Right.
but it just means that we have to repurpose a whole lot.
Okay, so you're naming a different kind of framing of the thing. What can you already identify from this list of things in the description that he just gave of what the organization's going through? Go for it.
In the back,
I'm
there
gonna
was
put up
someone that
2
kind of
words.
timidly
Go
raised
for
their
it.
hand.
Yeah, no raising hands. Just go for it. Here's your hint.
It sounds like you're categorizing those things as either one or the other.
That could be, yes. Even if he's feeling like this one is better description, his reality is that the CEO wants to frame it this way. But what's the difference between framing it in those two things? So if a pivot is grounded in what we've already done, and it's just a shift in a different direction, and a leap is like, we were here and this was our thing, and now we're going over here to this new thing, and now we have to become something new. Where can you identify like what we're dealing with here? Yes, adopt versus adapt, right? So, hey, we're still the event company. It's just now we sell software. Is like more of an, let's just adopt our, keep our branding, keep our messaging, keep our culture going. What Adam's saying is, I think the real challenge we're facing here is that now we just decided we're becoming a software company. And a software company, made famous in movies and, however you want to, joke about it, they operate very differently than event companies or other types of companies, right? It's a whole nother industry. So this whole concept of like, hey, we're just adopting, this new software thing, and it's just going to help us and bring a bunch of new revenue, right? Rather than saying we need to actually adapt into something totally new. And it's going to drive us to this question, not what should we do? We've already answered that. Now we're going to sell software, okay? We're going to sell software that supports events. It's driving them to this question, which is, if we are now a software company, who do we need to be? Who do we need to be to people who are buying software? Because software buyers are very different buyers than event planners, right? Come and plan me an event, come and raise money for my cause, or I'm looking to buy some software, why is yours best, right? And what you didn't include about your new role is that now you have sales responsibility. Talk about that.
So I was pretty much hired to do back office administrative stuff. But because of my previous skill sets and being a former athlete and someone who's been a strength coach on a couple of different levels and run a facility, I'm being asked to sort of blend this history that I have as an expert in the field to help sell the executives on the importance of our new spin, if you will, on wellness. And I have to be very candid about it. Like we've been going through this process for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I've had to change my skin a few times since becoming an athlete or since I retired from professional athletics. This is a really difficult challenge. I'm comfortable in front of people in this setting. I'm not so sure if I'm comfortable as a salesperson yet because I've never really done it. So that's going to be a real challenge for me.
Okay, time out. So on the salesperson identity responsibility shift, where do you see him operating on this right now? Wait, say it a couple people louder. I don't know, right? Like I don't know what it's like to be a software salesperson, let alone an executive software salesperson, because how many people are in the organization?
Well, we've got 5 right now, but we scale up.
So
and
there's
down.
5 people, okay? So there's not much of a bench to fall back on. And guess what? All 5 of those people were not hired to sell software. They were not hired by a software company, right? Like this is a shift for everyone. And software buyers don't necessarily understand your language about events and about cause leadership, right? So yes, and I don't know yet. It's also, he's back to this question. Okay, I know what I have to do. I got to sell software. I got to sell software to people of a certain specialty of software that they're looking to use the software to, promote cause leadership or to have events. That I can do. Who do I need to be in order to gear up or like get the guts to sit across the room from someone who wants to buy software and is going to drill me on it? And how do I reconcile that with the level of preparation that I'm used to, the level of reps and training that I'm used to before I ever try to go perform, right? As an Olympic athlete, like, you guys in the room know how many reps probably that like required for Adam to actually show up and perform. So does he have time to put in that many reps as a sales executive for a software company? He doesn't.
We're doing it on the fly too, which is smart. Can I just touch on something about one of the things that I did learn in my athletic career was this: who do I need to be, and basically who do I need around me to make that happen? And I didn't necessarily value it in the workforce as much as I do at this particular moment, because I've actually applied those skill sets over the last 3 weeks. some of you who may have seen me compete, maybe video, maybe you were at Power Athlete last year, I get very animated when I compete. And that was intentional because that was me becoming this, I called it the superhuman version of myself. I had a name for it. It was Nelly. And that was a process that I went through with experts, not necessarily in your direct field, but certainly the related side on sports. And it was an intentional process. So when you are reskinning yourself after being in a career, you don't have to abandon all the things that helped you become excellent or great at what you do. You simply have to find a new way to tweak that. And we were talking last night, and I wasn't doing this very well until my wife, who's like a constant source of like recorrection, you know, she's like, you're being...
Spouses will do that.
Yeah, she basically said, you're coming home and you're an asshole every night. You're not engaged with the kids. You're not this, you're not that. You need to change. And we talked through it, and I started applying some of these skill sets that I think maybe we'll talk about some. But this process that I would go through started off with seeing who or what I wanted to become. And it became more and more active, and the more and more detail, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go on for just a minute or two on this because there's a couple things here that I think are really important. But if I go too far, just snap your concussions, right? So there's the more detail you can add to that image of yourself, the more likely you are to achieve that result. I just heard a great speech by a guy who's wrestled under Cale Sanderson, who's the Penn State wrestling coach, and he does something that I thought was fascinating. Before every maybe before every dual meet, he has all of his wrestlers. Now keep in mind, these are 18 to 22-year-old kids. He has them draw, takes a big pack of paper, gives them all crayons, and says, draw an image of yourself winning. Now, I didn't do it like that, but I did a mental version of that same thing. And that's when you're going through these types of transitions, and I can't say that I'm not through it now, and you're only getting one snapshot where I'm actually putting on a strong face right now. It has been extraordinarily challenging to redefine the image of what that successful me looks like. But I'm thinking about borrowing a page from Cale's book and breaking out the crayons and having a drawing session with my children, because I think they'll enjoy it as well. But I think it also gives me some benefit. So my point is that those same things that make you great as an athlete or as an operator in whatever field you're in, they can help you with those transitions. You just you have to have the courage to understand that they are relevant still. So.
Yeah, and the difference between sort of like the who do I need to be and the what should I do, right? Like this is a winding like journey here, and it has a lot of requirements. And so you started naming a few of them, and we were naming them last night. And that is so like, you know, this is firmly where you're planted here, right? We're going to try to evolve this. But you just talked about the people that you need. And you talked about the context that you need, and you talked about the impact of that. And I would say this is where like you're going to have to be completely dependent on feedback, right? And so, I mean, we already know, you know, devour your weaknesses. Okay, that's a physical, you know, concept, but that's also a psychological concept, right? So you get the most gains if you want to grow psychologically or grow as a leader, if you tackle your weakest places, right? It's not just getting better at what you're already good at. You only get incremental gains on that. If you actually go tackle a weakness, you could go from 0 to somewhere modest, which is a larger gain. So feedback is going to come in hot here. But will you talk a little bit about how you think about what people you'll need, what kind of context you'll need, and what kind of impact you'll have? Can you talk about those things?
Yeah. What people I need right now?
Yes. It's okay to say. The first answer is you don't have them. Right?
We don't have them.
Yeah, okay.
So we have what we have.
Yes.
And so, you know, maybe in the context of what we're doing here, we're doing a lot of adoption. right
Yeah.
now. So just filling gaps. And that's a critical thing. So I work in a company that has a founder who has a very specific vision of what he wants to do and what he wants to accomplish. And sometimes that vision is defined exclusively in the confines of his own office and hasn't been necessarily subjected to the scrutiny of challenging some of the assumptions that he went in there with. And for those of you who are in a business, I hope maybe you are acutely aware of this, but that can be a real challenge. So maybe I'm going a different direction than what
Well,
you
no,
saw.
I think it's great. Why does that pose a challenge for you? What kind of challenge does a leader who's in that place pose for you?
Give me a second on that. Again, it comes back to changing my role and adapting my role to what the new vision is. It's been, when you come in wanting to run an event business that has a tremendous social impact, and when you realize that we're also in the startup phase, so we know we're going to change, but you kind of think that the changes are going to be like little shifts, and then all of a sudden there's a time where someone makes a compelling argument or has a compelling reason to change the company and change the whole skin of the company. The ripple effects for someone like myself is my first inclination when I see those kinds of changes. One, I've got to protect myself, my family, and I've got to find a way to navigate through this, and that's really, really stressful.
Well, and where does it tempt you then to go? That fear, the anxiety of that, of like that thing I need to be, I actually don't know how to be that thing yet. I haven't been that thing. I didn't ask to be that thing, but like here it is.
So in a world in which I've kind of grown up in and I've considered myself when I was singular in purpose for 15 years of my life. You know, every 4 years, my goal was reset for me. Win an Olympic gold, 4 more years. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew exactly how I was going to do it. When I transitioned out of that, I had to first get used to like changing goals, objectives, and what really was success to me and how I defined. There's a lot of other stuff here that I'm about to unpack, but
I think your answer is, I don't know. Can you hear it? He's like talking around it. He doesn't know. And that's not bad, but it's up to someone with like a coaching mindset or a coaching heart to say, it's okay, I think you don't know yet. And yet, like, you have everything you need, right, in order to go and hunt that thing. The person that you need to be, the leader that you need to be, so that your impact is what you want it to be, not you're an asshole when you come home, or you're diminished because you're acting like you don't know what to do, or, right, like, those would be the negative impacts. The impacts you want to have are, I'm in growth, I'm developing, that's an active process, I'm in challenge, my skills don't match, yet what I need, right, like, I'm in adaptation mode, and that's very exciting to be around a leader who is openly willing to say, we are adapting, I am adapting, we're going to do this. We don't necessarily know yet how. But like, we're at the fences, right? Like, we're at the edge of the like flat world. And guess what? It just curves off. Okay, awesome.
what?
Someone give him the podcast. Okay, so is that a
Google
good
that.
taster? Is that a good taster? Okay, can you give him a round of applause for just being willing to?
Perfect.
Can we talk? How many minutes for talking? Okay, 10 minutes for talking. So we'll keep it going, but I want to focus more on like you guys and let you speak into this. So if you want to talk to me about how we're thinking or how I'm talking, or if you want to talk to Adam, I just will keep us within the parameters of we're not solving his business problem. Okay, we're talking about how is he making sense of his business challenge, his leadership challenge, with his mindset, and how can we find the limits of that and then start to push on them. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, I know
Check,
this guy. I know
check,
this
check.
guy. Oh, look out. He might hijack us. Okay.
Flat Earth guy right over here. Adam, question. So I know you were football at Dartmouth, so have you experience in the team environment, and you were also a coach working with team environment, but you had your greatest success as that individual athlete. So do you find yourself defaulting more to that team side, trying to solve these issues and working with that group of five, or that individual athlete trying to solve this issue?
That is such a good insight. Nice work. This is why we're doing this
Thanks,
together.
Silky Smooth Tex.
Totally. Do you want to restate how you heard that insight? Like how that insight hit you? Because
Right.
you didn't hear it probably, but he was like, whoo. And you said that.
So I competed in a team sport. I played football all the way through college, and then really made my career as an individual athlete. And which one of those skill sets, working in a team or working as an individual, has helped, and has helped the most in this transition? Is that more or less okay? So from a communication standpoint, it's a bit of both. And particularly organizationally. One thing that being in a team environment has taught me is that you may have a specific role that you're supposed to play, but as the game unfolds, you have to change and adapt. And so it's not something that I spent a lot of time having to develop or continuing to develop after college, because I really was a one-man show in a lot of ways. But it even helped me as an individual athlete, because as an individual athlete, what I had to do was go and look at people and say, look, I need your help to do this objective, accomplish this. I can't pay you because I'm a shot putter, because I'm stupid like that, right? I loved it, but sometimes those things don't always pay the bills. And find ways to motivate people to help me achieve, I used to say a collective success, but at the end of the day, I was the one that was going to receive the medal, and then hopefully, they would feel part of that process.
Okay, so can I say how I heard that insight?
Yeah.
And that is, what challenge will that pose for your leadership now that you have mostly led your show and not necessarily like others?
Now,
is that fair? Okay.
So the biggest asset that I have right now as a leader is the fact that as an individual and setting individual goals, I had to truly deconstruct what it was going to take to get to that goal, which is basically project management 101. So,
and you're a rock star at that.
I do all right with that.
Yeah, you're a rock star at that. There's a ton of translation, right? That's a transferable skill. Leading myself, motivating myself, disrupting myself, figuring out where my weakness is and tackling that, building after it, going looking for a new one, et cetera, right? Like, you're a rock star at this.
So the real
successful in spite of.
I mean, the real challenge in this scenario is getting the buy-in to the process that we create. That should be a we create when you're not setting the actual end objective, the goal. And so my role as I came into this company was to help design the processes that were going to help us accomplish this goal. So develop the roadmap to get there. And I was really good at that. I am really good at that. In this new role, the new goals and new objectives are still sort of squishy. And they've been set without any additional buy-in from the rest of the company, which is challenging. So
you're actually now on the other end of that, which is you used to set the goals and then determine the path to get yourself there. Mm-hmm. Now the goal is being set for you without, not in a collaborative space. Mm-hmm. And your call is to mobilize others to work forward to achieve that goal. So you've got two challenges, as it were, right? One, you didn't get to participate in the setting of the goal. That's a leadership challenge for sure. And it requires adaptation, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not used to getting people mobilized towards a goal. So there's two pieces of challenge there.
Sure.
Which one feels the most challenging at this point? Like as of 3 days ago.
As of 3 days, we had this, oh gosh, which one is the most challenging? Well, I think for me right now, it's the goal part. I'm a big believer in dreaming big, but I also will tell you at the same time that dreams are really cheap and easy. Everybody's got one. They don't require any effort. They're not actionable unless you put them into action. And so my biggest challenge right now is communications, probably communicating up and helping my founder sort of adapt a more realistic expectation of what we can accomplish right at this particular point, like today, 30 days from now.
Communication, I think, is code for you giving difficult feedback
Yes.
up about a goal that doesn't necessarily feel like we see the way to the path to achieving that thing. There's a lot of nodding heads, right? So like I've been in that situation before too, right? Goal set, not collaboratively for us, but we're the ones that have to mobilize towards it. And I would sort of mention that like you guys are close, but you're probably not close enough to have felt like the change in Adam. I don't know if you could see that. The quality of his voice changed. You know, his eyes sort of got like misty. He just got to a place where when I said sort of like, what's the most challenging part of this, right? Like it took a long time for us to kind of drill down into it, but we just got to the actual challenge. And that is communicating difficult information to someone who's in leadership over you about an organization that's in a major disruption, right? And the question that, you know, I would start to drill into with him, it would be really tempting for him and for me and for the organization and for the leader to all go here. What should we do? Okay, we need to have collaborative meetings about setting the goal now. We need to set a goal setting process. Okay, now we're gonna have a policy about setting goals and who's involved and really pick, hey, that's really a huge temptation, and all organizations have to like accomplish those functions. You do need a goal setting process. You do need policies. You do need collaboration. Innovation requires collaboration. You need more of that. But really, the difficult work that's worth taking on, that takes us to a place that's meaningful, as like that speaks to our identity, that speaks to the impact of the people who are closest to us, and to actually achieving the things that we dream about. That's who do I need to be, and who do we need to be together in order to do this thing, to achieve this dream?
Yeah, and
I think we have 1 minute.
Okay, we have 1
Your
minute.
most meaningful statement.
Most meaningful statement. Whew.
Where did you go?
Yeah. The biggest challenge in communicating up is being able to be honest in a way that the person that you're trying to impart that message to, that they will listen and receive. The job of a coach is to repeat themselves over and over again until their athlete hears it. They're not stupid. They are listening. It's just the timing's not right. In this role, I've had to fall back on that, but I can't repeat the same message. I've had to adapt the way I communicate with my boss and with the rest of our company and the people that we're hiring. We're in a major growth phase right now.
And I would argue that like that's what you're having to do internally too, is to talk to yourself differently. Because you, as an individual athlete and in your leadership roles before now, it's been, I will repeat it until I can do it.
Yep.
I can repeat it until I can get it done before I accomplish it. And that's not gonna work for you anymore either.
Yep.
Okay. Can we give him a hand and thank you for joining us? Can I give you a hug?
Thank you. It's great.